So we're back to finish up the desk. In this case, I didn't set project again because we kind of did that in the first video. It's kind of more like every day you come in and you're going to work on your projects. Set project. Remember, file, set project right there. In this case, I never closed my scene, so. So what we want to do here is we want to make this handle. Quickly make this drawer structure. Although this one you could just kind of put in as just just a cube and bevel it, because there's not really any borders there. We'll make this little knob, and I'll show you kind of a neat tool called snaptogether. It's not perfect in every instance, but it's useful, and I'll show you kind of at least on one of these, putting it in the center, and then we can kind of move it over and mirror them. But we want to make this handle first. Now when we look at this handle, we can see it's really going to have probably some cylinders on the back right there, but it's also going to be really just this kind of little bar, right? So one of the things we can easily do is kind of make it just in the center of the world. So we'll go to create, polygon primitives, cylinder, because I'm going to make it kind of for the back part. Now in this case, I really feel like I could probably just keep that low res. So I'm going to go to the cylinder options box, and I also want to make it kind of this direction, right, the Z. So I'll tilt to be on the Z axis. I probably don't want 28, but I figure maybe like 20 will work fine. All right, so we'll do 20. There we go. And we'll scale this down. R for scale, right? And we'll just kind of drag that down. Left click on the center one, right? Remember, middle mouse button will actually do whatever your last used axis was. And then we'll hit W for move forward. There we go. And I'm going to make it thinner too. R for scale. I'm just going to left click on the blue arrow to bring it in. And there we go. Now in this case, we really probably don't need the back faces because those will be lined up with the rest of it. So we can just kind of do tab, right, for drag select. So remember, I'm face mode. Hold down right mouse button, face. Tab for drag select, which could be a great fast way to select those, right? Then we can hit delete just to get rid of them. And then I'm just going to quickly do a bevel kind of on this edge right here. So we'll go to edge, double click. Remember, double left click, select that edge loop. Bevel. Perfect, right? So you notice how you can still make a pretty good low res without smooth preview just by having your base mesh be denser and then use bevel, right? So we've definitely started dabbling with some smooth preview, and that's often really cool. Like, in fact, the handle I'm going to use smooth preview on. But oftentimes you can just make straight low res stuff and put some bevels on to get the rounded corners you're looking for. Trying to give you guys a good balance of kind of those ideas in this. So I'm going to hit W for move really quick and move it over a little bit. Should be good right about there. And then I'm going to mirror it, right? So I'm going to go mesh, mirror, right? And this will be great, right? Go to options box. Usually, remember, I turn cut geometry off. Make sure and when you do the copy is available. World on offset 0 should be good as well because we're building this off the 0, right? And in this case, I do want to mirror it on the x-axis because I want to mirror it that way, and that's the red or the x. So x axis is fine. And even combined with original is fine because I'm going to make these into one object. Now in this case, you'll notice my merge threshold for the merge border is a little bit high, right? So you might turn that down to like say 0.1 or even lower, right? So keep in mind that you actually do have a merge threshold for the vertices. And the larger that number is, the bigger the threshold is, right? And they can start to grab and merge each other, right? So usually that threshold should be quite low. Yeah, there you go. So there's our mirror tool. And remember, that mirror is a great way to just copy stuff over to the other side as one object. And we've seen that a couple times, and we'll see it a couple more times before we're done too, with our other projects. So there we go. So now what we would want to do, and the handle might be a little large right now, but we can scale it down. So we want to make this part right here. Now this is going to be quite easy. In fact, we have, just like we've seen mirror before and we've seen bevel before, we're not really doing much new here, right? It's just kind of seeing these tools again and seeing how we can use them in the same ways or even slightly different ways. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a cube. So I'm going to go to create polygon primitives cube. I'm going to hit R for scale this down, right? Remember, you just left click drag on the center one because that scales all three at the same time. Remember, if you do middle mouse button, right, it'll actually do whatever your last handle used was. So W for move forward. There we go. It's still a little bit big. It also should be further down. There we go. Probably move it back a little bit, right? So remember, W is your move tool, and then you just can grab your different handles. Now I'm going to hit scale this out a little bit in this direction, so I'm going to hit R for scale and grab that red handle, scale it out a little bit. And I feel like it could be a little thinner. There we go. All right. down. So W for move, R for scale, right? W for move, R for scale, and then you just grab the specific handle you want to move. In this case, you see when I scaled it, though, I did make sure to scale it just on the red axis so that it's still, basically, the center is still lined up on the 0. That's because we're going to use symmetry on this again. We've seen symmetry a couple times, right? We started to get to see it a little bit on, particularly for our brace, right? We have to really explore that on our brace for our lamp. And we're going to definitely see it on our character. We're going to see it on our chair. We're going to see it on our clock radio. So we're going to start to use symmetry a lot more. And we've already used it a little bit. Now remember, symmetry always works best if you have an edge loop right down the center, right? That really kind of allows it to properly work on both sides. It'll still work, but it gets weird about adding edge loops in because there not being an edge loop down the center, it just confuses a little bit. So I've just found that having an edge loop down the center really just helps symmetry to work a lot better. Also, if you ever have to delete half of it and mirror it over, you could do that because you already have an edge loop down the center. So of course, multi-cut. All right, good old multi-cut. And of course, we can hold down Control. Now, you'll notice my snap percentage size is set 45 because of that slice we did for our room, right? So I'm going to set that back to 50 just so it goes right to the middle. By default, it's set to 10. And that just snaps to 10%, 20%, 30%. At 50, it'll snap to 50%, which is right in the middle. So remember, hold down Control, right? Because that lets you put the edge loop in. Control Shift snaps. So you have to hold down Control with multi-cut on to put an edge loop in, right? Control Shift. So if you hold both of them down, that allows you to snap. There we go. There's our edge loop right in the center. Now, of course, this is pretty rounded and curved. So I'm going to hit 3 to put it in a smooth preview. Yay. And then, of course, we're going to go to Symmetry here. All right, so there's this little Symmetry menu. You click on the triangle. Now, if you did have this object off-center, you'd still want an edge loop down the center, but you could technically have it off the 0 and use Object. And as long as you didn't freeze transforms, this should work pretty well because it'll use kind of that local transform for that object. In this case, we didn't move it object, so world will be fine. And we'll actually explore topology a lot more later on. That actually, particularly build more complicated models, like our character, definitely a bit more useful. So we'll definitely explore topology later in the semester. But in this case, we want to do it on the X, so that if I select this side, it'll select that side. That's the X axis, so we'll do world X. And then, of course, we can hold down right mouse button to go to face selection. And you notice I can grab this face, right, and it selects the face on the other side. And then what we can do is we can hit W for move. Now, remember, there is view move, right? But that moves based on the camera. So you see how it moved it back a little bit? And that actually be really useful. We'll see that a lot on our clock radio and our character, right? The view move. But remember, you can always just move along just one axis, right? But there's also these little squares. These squares can allow you to move on 2 axes at a time, right? So you might find it actually a little bit more useful to make it quicker to just use that square just to move along these 2 axes. Now bring this up to get a little bit of rounding. Now remember, rounding isn't just moving, right? You want to hit E for rotate also, so we can kind of rotate this a bit, right? And then we're going to extrude. W for move, right? Because we don't really want this to move along normal direction. We want to actually use the manipulators like this. So moving it up a little bit. E for rotate, right? Rotate that a little bit. And remember, Control E is your quick key for extrusion. W for move. Move this up a bit, right? And in fact, I feel like this should come out a little bit more. So I'm going to hold down right mouse button and go to edge mode. Double left click on an edge, and then I can move this down. So remember, you can actually constantly adjust these, right? And you'll notice you can even try to move this one off the center, but it won't move off the center, right? Because that symmetry's on. So we can kind of go back here and make little adjustments, right? If you didn't quite get it perfect on that initial start run, you can always come back in here and adjust it. Go back to face mode, select that face, rotate it a little bit, bring it out, extrude again. W for move, rotate a bit, so we're kind of rotating it to bend in this way. Extrude again, right? W for move, rotate it a bit, there we go. And then maybe one more extrusion, we'll just move this one out a little bit, rotate it. And if we still need to make adjustments, right, I can hold down right mouse button, go to edge mode, double click on that edge loop, rotate it a bit, right, double click on that edge loop, move it down. So you'll notice that you can easily kind of continue to come back here and make these adjustments, right? So it's one of those things where it's easy to rotate, to move, right, to get exactly the shape you want, right? You don't have to have it perfect right when you're doing it, right? You can always come back and grab a face, a single edge, double left click on a whole edge loop, and you could still move and rotate and scale those. But you see how by making sure to rotate as well as move, this shape follows and bends. If I didn't do those rotations, right, kind of remember how these were kind of initially coming out straight, watch what happens if I select all these edge loops and I try to straighten them out to what they would look like if I didn't do rotates. And we get this ugly mess, right? So it is really important that you understand, and we've already seen this, we did it on our brace, we did it on our bed railing, right? It's important that as you're extruding faces out, because that's all it was, right? I was just selected a face and I just extruded. That's all just extrusions, right? But I did enough that I had enough shape, and I made sure to move but also rotate so that the shape bends, right? Bends properly and keeps its volume, right? But you're also seeing that kind of great ability for us to come back and still adjust shape as we go, right? So we can always go back and adjust those shapes. If you need to, you can always add an extra edge loop, right? If you're like, oh man, I need an extra edge loop there, do it, right? Pretty easy to add that extra edge loop in to give you a little more to work with. But that ability to move, rotate, is still really useful, right? You also notice that even though I'm working with Smooth Preview, I'm still trying to keep it pretty simple. I don't need to have 50 edge loops around here to get the roundness for the shape, right? That Smooth Preview really takes care of that for us. I'll move this down a little bit. There we go. And remember, if you're going to use Smooth Preview, though, you better smooth your model, right? Looks pretty bad in low res. We smooth it. That's now our low resolution. There we go. Got that nice little handle. We can select both of these and combine, right? And that's our handle. Now in this case, I'm just going to scale this down, kind of move it into position here. Now in this case, you notice how we can't get it exactly lined up on the center? Well, there is technically the Snap Together tool, but it doesn't really work as well with that because there's no kind of center plate here for this. So in this case, it might be one of those things where you quickly will just go to multi-cut. I'm going to turn symmetry off, right? We don't need symmetry on anymore, so I'm going to turn that off. And I can always put an edge loop down the center of this drawer, right, temporarily. And that way, if I select this object and I turn my move tool on, I can turn that snap vertex on and snap it to that closest vertex. And that'll get it perfectly on the center. So remember, you can just add an edge loop down here, right? So I just use my multi-cut, put an edge loop down the center of the drawer, turn on snap vertex, and if I grab just the red arrow and drag, you'll see how it kind of gets that edge loop and it snaps to it. Now at that point, I don't want that edge loop anymore, so I can go to edge mode, right? Double left click on it. Remember, control delete, right? We saw that in the other video. If we want to take out edge loops and the vertices, control delete. So sometimes you might find that you just want to maybe add a quick edge loop to something just to kind of get that alignment better. And then we can move this back, and now we notice that it got exactly the right centered position, right? The rest of it we can just kind of eyeball, right? And then of course we can duplicate. So edit, duplicate, kind of bring this one down. And once again, that's not even exactly in the center. So it's really more just kind of getting it centered this direction, right? And so I did kind of put an edge loop temporarily in here with my multi-cut, right in the center. And I use my snap vertex, right? Kind of give us that nice little centering ability. At this point, if I want to, we can combine, right? Kind of all these. All right, so I'll kind of combine the drawers to the handles. There we go. And in this case, I can kind of mirror these over one at a time. So I can just select the cabinets, mesh, mirror, and it's already set up to the default options, so we're good there. I can grab the drawers and handles, mesh, mirror. There we go. And these are all one object. Remember, you can always separate them if you really want to. You now see they're all separate, right? In this case, I kind of wanted to keep them together. But we've got now most of that taken care of. So now we really just kind of need to do this last little drawer and kind of this little handle right here. And I'll show you a different snapping function for this one. But this kind of will support it better because it's a single symmetrical object. So we're going to make this drawer really quick. So it's going to be create polygon primitives cube. We'll hit R for scale. Scale it down a bit. There we go. And of course, one of the things we've seen is, and we could have waited to bevel these and put this in earlier, but it's okay, right? So let's scale this up, move it up here a little bit, maybe scale it down a little bit there. Remember, W for move, R for scale. And we need to use that snap vertex to get that greater precision alignment, right? So I'm going to hold down right mouse button over the object, face. Select that top face right there. There we go. We can turn W on for move. And remember that magnet right here, right? These magnets are our snap tools. This kind of third one in, magnet with the little blue dot, is your snap vertex. And that is going to allow you to snap to the closest vertex along this axis if we grab the green, right? So by holding down the left mouse button on the green axis, you'll notice I can kind of move it over these cursors, right? So remember, if you hold down the left mouse button, you can just move your cursor and you can kind of grab a vertex that's kind of right there. All right, grab this face, do it on the red axis, boom. Grab this face, red axis, right? And sometimes you move the cursor around a little bit until it finds the closest vertex. Sometimes it'll overshoot because there are other vertices on this, right? But it is trying to find that closest vertex. So we grab the blue arrow. There we go. Grab this back one. Left click driving that blue arrow. Remember, as you're holding down the left mouse button, you can move the cursor around. And you see how you can kind of find a closer vertex to snap it to? There we go. Remember that snap vertex is just a great way to kind of do that nice precision alignment, right? We even saw it a little bit there with those guys. So remember, snap vertex, and you can actually grab one of the actual arrow handles, and it'll try to snap to the closest vertex, but also only move it along that axis. So a little more practice with the snap vertex tool. So that'll give us good cabinets there. So what I'll do is I'll go to edge mode and select all the edges. And we'll just bevel. Bevel's a little big, so we'll set that fraction to be like 0.1. That should work pretty well. And segments at 3 is fine. Remember, you can hit Q to turn your tool off. There we go. And now we got that guy in there. You see how that snap vertex kind of allowed us to get some nice precision alignment? So remember, snap vertex is kind of your precision snapping function, right? I've seen better snapping tools than what Maya has. Honestly, most packages actually have better ones, but they're good enough, right? A lot of the big ones you need are right there. And precision snapping is kind of one of your workhorse ones, right? It really gives you some good precision snapping once you understand how to use it. But believe it or not, other software has the ability to snap to centers of faces, to snap to centers of edges, to snap to edges, right? I could kind of use a little bit more work on its snapping tools. They are easy to use though, and you have some decent ones there. All right, so that gives us that, and now we just need to make this little guy right here. Now that's really just kind of like our knob that we did for, it's really our doorknob, and it's really like the knob we did for our end table, right? It's basically looks like a kind of a spherical shape with maybe a cylinder sticking out of the back. So I can go to create polygon primitive sphere, and we'll keep this one low res again. We don't always have to work in smooth preview, right? In fact, we've worked on it some, but not all the time. So I'm going to make this guy denser. I'm going to make it more like, I don't know, like 20 by 20. And in this case, I do want it on the z-axis also, right? Because I want it on its side. So z 20 by 20. There we go. It's a bit big. So R for scale it down a lot. W for move, so we can move it forward. Remember, F for frame selection. It's a great way to kind of have your camera zoom in and set your camera rotator on what you're working on. Whatever's selected, right? F, right? There we go. And this looks like about the right size. Yeah. So F for frame selection. And in this case, what I really want to do is I just want to kind of get rid of the back here. Now, this will be easy enough to do just through holding down our mouse button, face. And I can just do a little kind of quick box select right here. Just to grab those back ones. Now, you notice I didn't grab all of them, right? So you might hold down tab really quick, just add those. There we go. Technically, you could even, if you wanted to select the face loop, you'd select the face. And then if you shift double left click, on the face next to it, it selects a face loop, right? And you could delete that. Now, even though these are one object, right, because they are one object still, you'll notice that they're not connected anymore. So if I double left click on a face, it selects just the connected ones, and we delete that. So you see how there's multiple ways to approach that? None of them wrong, right? Easy to do a marquee select, and then maybe a drag select to grab the few it didn't grab. But you could also just get rid of a face loop, and delete the faces. And I'm going to go to edge mode, select an edge on the border here, and I'm going to go to mesh, fill hole. Now there's a face there. It's a giant n-gon. That's okay. We're not going to see the back of it. So grab that face. We can extrude. Hit W to move it out a little bit. And now we have that kind of cylinder part there, right? Now remember, in low res, if I go to object mode, right, hold down mouse on object mode, you'll see it's a bit faceted there. Remember, that's just your mesh display soften edge, right? That'll do a pretty good job of softening that for you. It might be a little weird back here. You can always grab that face, go mesh display harden edge, kind of reharden just that section, right? So harden edge is by default set to 0, so you won't have any smoothing between the polygons, right, in terms of shading. Whereas soften edge is 180, so it'll always smooth them. So remember, we've seen this a little bit before, soften on hard edge, but you can of course do that here. Now the reason I wanted a big n-gon here is because it's going to make it easier for us to use the snap together tool to show off that this is available. And this is going to be the last thing we're going to do here when we're over and we're done with the desk, right? But I just want to make sure you guys kind of see a couple different handle types, right? And basically mostly just the end table repeats. So there is a tool in Maya called Snap Together. It's in the Modify menu. Snap Together tool. So we're going to go to Options, Snap Together tool options box. And you'll notice that by default it's set to move and rotate objects. And that's usually what you want, but you can have it just move objects only. You also can have snap to polygon face on. Now in this case, I'm going to leave that off for the moment just to show you what it's like without that. So I'm going to leave that off for the moment. Put the Snap Together tools on. What happens is if you hold down your left mouse button and drag on the surface, you'll notice it's kind of got this little arrow that's lining up to the normal directions of the faces, right? Remember, normal direction is just the direction the face is pointing, right? But it kind of freely goes anywhere in that normal direction. So I can kind of leave it there if I wanted to. And then I could left click drag kind of the same thing on another part of the mesh. And then we could hit enter and it snap aligns that. Now in this case, it's not exactly kind of centered exactly on the world. But one of the things you could do is you can go to Modify, Snap Together Tool Options box, and you can tell it to snap to polygon face, right? And what this does is now when I hold down left mouse button drag, you'll see how it snaps to the center of that face. So it's still kind of aligning to the normal direction of the polygon you're clicking over. I'm just left click dragging, right? I'm holding down left mouse button. But it goes to the center face. And then we could left click drag here, and you see how it goes to the center of that one. Now technically I could put it on the bottom here. So it sits at the bottom. So kind of neat to know about this tool, right? You're not going to need to use it all the time, but it's kind of neat to know about it. So I'll turn it on again, left click there, hit enter, and it snaps right to the center. Now in this case I do want it to kind of be moved over a little bit, so I'll hit W for move it over to about there. And then of course we could do mesh mirror, boom. If we want to make sure this is one object, right? Select the object, hold down shift so you select the second object. Combine it, make them one object. And there is our drawer. That back part I'm not going to make because that really is just kind of make another cube, right? Make it long enough so the way you made kind of the cabinets, you just make another one, right? It'll just be pretty thin, you know. Actually, I'll make it really quick for you. So you see how we can just kind of make this guy much thinner. There we go. Just kind of place it in the back, right? And of course, if we want, we could use our snap vertex. Right, we can go to face mode here, on that face. Left click drag on the green arrow to kind of snap those up there. Left click on the red arrow to snap that there. Left click drag on that red arrow to snap that one there. There we go. And then of course that green one. There we go. And maybe even that blue one back there. There we go. And then of course we turn snap vertex off, right? So remember, snap vertex gives you that precision alignment that you might like. Of course we can go to edge mode, grab all the edges. In this case you can see how maybe I probably snap precise a little more, but you get the gist, right? So that'll work pretty well for us. Just kind of get that in there. Just snap vertex, there we go. Make sure it's kind of snapped pretty well. All right. Maybe grab that one just to make sure it's in a better place. Remember 4 for wireframe, 5 shaded. There we go. Alright. a little bit better. All right. So we're going to snap vertex, and then you just grab on that actual arrow, and it only moves along that arrow, but it does try to snap it to the closest vertex based on where your cursor's at. And then, of course, edges. Do a quick bevel. That should be fine. And there we go. And we've got our desk.